Proudly presented by Rant and Rave with Chris Avant-Smith, the T-Health Show, sponsored by the Opperman Clinic.
Good evening, this is Chris Avant-Smith, and we are in the T-Health Show. Sitting with me, as usual, is the wonderful Dr. Mark and Dr.
Chris.
Mel. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
How are you all doing tonight?
Wonderful. Great to be here. Great to be with your audience, and hopefully going to talk some amazing new stuff.
Cannot wait. I'm really excited about this topic. Mark, how are you this lovely morning?
You know what? If it's
Evening,
still
hey?
morning,
No,
one of
evening,
us have been
good Lord.
sleeping late. You know what? I've had a beautiful weekend out of Johannesburg for the first time in months. So,
Nice.
you know what? I think I can recommend it to anyone. Just get out of Johannesburg if
I
you've
did
been
that as well this
stuck
weekend.
here for the past couple of months, and when you come back, it's you have a new lease on life. So yes, we're talking new things. We're talking IV therapy and IV treatments, and we've asked Dr. Melanie Lambrechts from the Center of Wellness to join us tonight. Mel, you've been a colleague for a very long time. Welcome, and thank you for giving up your time to come and share your knowledge with us.
Oh, it's only a pleasure. It's always great to collaborate with you, Mark.
So, we've spoken at length in all the shows about COVID and the effect that it has on us, from our mental well-being to our physical well-being. And one of the things that for me started showing up more and more was people that go for IV therapies as a form or a method to try and boost their immune systems. Tell us a little bit more about IV therapy and the benefits that we can see from it.
Well, IV therapies have probably been around in earnest for about 40 years or more, but in reality, round about the Second or the First World War, IV therapy became known for the first time. And it was this concept that you can't always get a medicine in by swallowing it. Sometimes it just won't go in. There's something called oral bioavailability, which means the ability of your gut to absorb a nutrient, a food, and in some cases a medicine. And everything has its percentage bioavailability. And sometimes it's inherent in a drug, and sometimes it's something to do with you that limits
Yes.
oral bioavailability. So one of the purposes of IV therapy is to circumvent that, to just get it out of the way, because especially today, we understand that our guts can be extremely non-functional. They don't work very well anymore for various reasons.
Absolutely.
And IV therapy is this way that we can completely avoid any issues with the gut. You puncture the skin, you put a cannula into the arm, and you can get 100% bioavailability of the medicine or drug or nutrient that you're deciding to put in. So there's certain things that your body just doesn't want to absorb or can't absorb, and our role as doctors and as clinicians is to know when things like that aren't working. And it's a way that we can get good stuff in. And this is, especially now, I'd say in the last couple of months, IV therapy has really become quite a hot topic, because people are realizing that they need it as a boost to their health. Specifically, I think a lot of patients who've been through COVID and come out the other side have realized that if you're well and everything's okay, the one thing that seems to linger is a deep exhaustion,
Yeah,
a
the
complete
fatigue.
mental fog. You just feel like you can't get out of bed, you can't get back to your daily living. And more than ever, the power of IV nutrient therapy has kind of flared again when we see how beneficial it is to these patients.
So, you know what, I think for a lot of people, the moment that we say we puncture the skin,
And a cannula and all of that. My goodness, it just sounded way too technical.
it conjures up horrific memories of, having blood taken by a nurse with a big bruise and it's sore. Mel, this is not the case.
No, this is not the case. I think we all have poor, bad, scary memories of needles and some kind of prick that's happened in our lives. And I think the majority of us, if we take that one step further and realize it's a mental thing, because for those ladies and gentlemen out there that have been for a wax, one pull of that wax strip is 30 times sorer than the sudden little pinch that happens, and it's all done. Because once the prick is done, there's no pain.
Yeah.
You sit there, it's just the gloriousness that comes thereafter. But I think we do need to say, and I think you need to be quite aware that puncturing the skin is quite a thing. You're circumventing all of the body's defense mechanisms. So your gut is very clever. If it doesn't want something in, it can make you nauseous, it can make you vomit, and it'll expel whatever it is it doesn't want. And being a medical doctor, I have the power with that little pricky thing to actually bypass your body's defense mechanisms. So right up front, I want to just say that it's a huge responsibility to do IV therapy as a medical practitioner, because I have the power to take away your body's defenses and to give you, hopefully, something that's good for you. And it's really, really important that this is done hand in hand with a doctor that knows what they're doing.
I mean, I think to me that is probably one of the key things. And I mean, it's something that we always come back to on the show is, horses for courses. Go to the right people to do the right jobs. And I think it's so important, especially as you say, we are breaching the body's security system. I mean, our skin is one big organ. We're breaking through it. We're putting stuff in the body, to my mind and to my understanding, that is in big dosages. It's going to be very targeted to something specific, and you've got to know what you're doing about that.
Well, Chris, it's not only that. You also have to place that IV correctly. As Mel would tell you, when we started as students putting up IVs on a patient, you can just walk into a hospital and you can ask someone whose IV leaked out, or who wasn't in a vein, how painful that can be. Besides all the dangers of what's in the drip.
I've had a blown drip before, and it's hugely painful.
Okay, Mel.
Yes.
When we talk about that, there's IV therapy clinics springing up in every shopping center, on every street corner. This is convenient, but in my mind, incredibly dangerous and incredibly irresponsible. We know that IV therapy is a prescription medication.
Correct, it is.
Which means that it should only be and can only be prescribed by medical practitioners who are on site. Am I correct?
You are 100% correct. It is, as you said, a scheduled medicine. In other words, it's a Schedule 3 or above, and the Medical Council and the Health Professions Council require that a doctor prescribes that to you. So yes, it's very convenient to have a nurse around, having a nurse to put up the drip and to infuse it. There's lots of amazing nurses out there that can technically put up a drip, but the decision to put the drip up in the first place, the prescription for that cannot be made by a nurse. So I hate to tell you that the end result is that the responsibility of going to somebody professional and who's licensed to do this actually rests with you as the consumer.
Absolutely.
Because you need to ask that question. I won't have a drip put up until the doctor sees me, please, to make sure that this drip is right for me and that it's safe for me. One of the things that scares me incredibly is that in a lot of these IV bars, you're allowed to walk in and choose a drip from a menu. So like you're in a restaurant, I'll have the immune boosting shot today, please. And, who is actually saying that that's right for you? It's incredible that very so-called healthy nutrients given to the wrong person in the wrong dose or at the wrong speed can be deadly. So as a consumer, I would be very nervous to walk in and to sit down and let somebody puncture my skin and give me a nutrient that I don't actually know is safe for me.
Well, it's the old story, I think. We started taking multivitamins and supplements to supplement shortages that we have from nutrients. The problem that we forget that we have with that is in your multivitamin and then in your B complex and in your CoQ10, there might be some zinc in all three of them. And your body only requires 50 milligrams, and in total you might be getting 250 milligrams. The shortage that you have now becomes a toxicity.
Absolutely.
And patients forget that. We think if we stuff ourselves and take lots of multivitamins and vitamins and supplementation, that we do no harm. It's actually the opposite.
Absolutely.
But now I'm flabbergasted because I've always gone along with, it doesn't matter if you overtake your vitamins because your body's just going to expel it anyway.
The body has a phenomenal way of keeping homeostasis by trying to keep its internal environment stable.
Right.
But if there's an overload, that needs to get excreted or dealt with in some way, which means that one of our organs, being it the liver, the kidneys, have to work harder.
Yeah.
Which results into damage. Yes, minute damage from that one, but over time, a lot of damage to an organ.
So if for example, I decide I'm going to take vitamin C, and I think, well, if 300 milligrams is good for me, if I maybe take 3,000 milligrams a day, it's going to be even better. Especially if I've got a cold, if I've got this or something like that. So actually, it's not right.
Absolutely. I think in a lot to do in medicine, sometimes a little bit is great. A little bit more could be better, but even more is not always the best. And in fact, you tip over to that situation where you're causing harm.
Yeah.
And you're not doing it on purpose, but it can have drastic effects.
Right.
And even more so with an IV therapy, because let's say a patient is now on 3 different supplements at home. They're afraid of getting COVID or they're afraid of getting sick, and they now arrive and there's no doctor doing a screening check. What are you on? Why are you feeling this way? Why have you come today?
Exactly.
Checking certain basic blood tests that should be checked before to make sure that IV therapy won't be risky to you. Do you have a liver issue? Do you have a kidney issue? Is there mild heart failure? Is your blood pressure stable? If you're not checking all of that, even a little bit of a nutrient can be quite dangerous.
Right.
So very, very important to be able to, as a medical practitioner, assess the full picture in that patient before anything is done.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're going to tell me you go to medical school for 8 years and then, it all. What about me? I can read the back of a bottle, And I mean, but you see, this is the sort of key information that is so, so important. Because, I mean, I told you what I've believed all my life, that if I take extra vitamins, they're just going to disappear. And I mean, that's a very scary thought to me, actually.
The wonderful thing about taking something orally is you will absorb what you need and excrete the rest.
Right.
With IV therapy, that choice
Is taken away.
is taken away from you.
Okay.
So it's incredibly important to understand your own responsibility when you walk into a place. As Mel said so rightly, the person who takes responsibility, you will sign an indemnity form before they put your IV up that you take responsibility for if anything happens. There's no doctor that will take responsibility for you if the doctor is not on site.
Sure. Can we move on slightly, because I think we understand that really it needs to be done by a doctor.
We're all on the same page.
With a history done properly, etc., so that you get the right thing. What are the therapies that are available to us? Because I think that's quite important. It is the new trend. It's the new curve, as Mark said, literally. And now that you said it last week when we were discussing the show, I've seen a whole bunch of these shops popping up all over the place, and you know, I've had a look. But what is available to us?
So the typical, and if I can say most common IVs out there are certain combinations of vitamins and minerals. And there's a reason that there's a certain typical group that's put together, and that's because our diets are deficient in quite predictable things these days, and at the same time, our lifestyles are loaded with stress, etc., in a certain way that makes certain predictable things a concern.
Right.
So, for example, the B vitamins as a group are water-soluble vitamins that are essential to get from a good diet in certain amounts each day. And the reality is we eat poorly these days. A typical fast food meal will have 0 in that. So you'll fill your belly and you'll fill none of the nutrient pot that's
Right.
required for the body to build and heal itself, to run the engine that is your immune system and your brain and the proper neural functioning and cardiac functioning. So we really, one of the main concerns is that our diets are so poor in certain things, specifically B vitamins, vitamin C, and then certain nutrients like zinc, magnesium, selenium, for
Right.
example. And one more swing on that is that our bodies have certain defense mechanisms that are toxin neutralizing mechanisms. And they're a combination of vitamins and then what we call antioxidants. So anybody who knows skin and wellness, the hot topic for years has been this concept of antioxidants. And literally they are a vast group of substances that are able to neutralize toxins so that your body can get rid of them in a safe way, but then at the same time to regenerate dying cells and DNA. So help fighting against things like cancer and aging. So all of these drips are subtle and careful combinations of these types of ingredients. And often, I mean, obviously it has to be quite carefully mixed, because it's very interesting that 2 very healthy ingredients on their own mixed together in an IV bag can make a toxin. They can make
Right.
certain bad ingredients together. So part of creating IVs is also understanding what's compatible at certain times. So yeah, the IVs are a very careful cocktail of certain substances given at certain times. Some cannot be given on the same day. Some should be given once a week or 3 times a week, for example. And it's a science, and it's something that needs to be studied and understood before you can move forward into giving them. So the most typical you'll always see on the offering at these clinics is often multivitamin and mineral supplements.
Right.
One thing I'm absolutely passionate about, and Mark will give me a big smile here because he knows my passion, is ozone therapy, which many of you may not have heard before,
Yeah.
but in recent years, we're actually able to bubble and make a drip out of ozone, and it is one of the most powerful healing drips available.
So, Mel, when you talk ozone, I think most people think about the hole in the ozone. So, tell us a little bit more about what ozone actually is.
So ozone is a massive bubble of gas that floats around the Earth, way above our heads, and it is one of the most powerful, that's a special word, antioxidants available.
Right.
We, as Earth, are this beautiful blue and green ball floating around the sun, and the sun basically, keeps us alive. Without it, we die. But at the same time, without this ozone layer around us, that sun will literally fry us because it's pure radiation.
Yes.
So we need certain energy from it, but we also need to be protected from its most harmful rays. Otherwise, we'll literally just fry like an egg. So the ozone layer is this bubble. And every bad ray that comes from the sun hits this ozone layer. So ozone is O3 biochemically versus O2, which is oxygen.
Right.
And it energetically absorbs the bad rays from the sun, it splits apart into O2, and then the Earth regenerates more O3. And yes, there is a massive hole in the ozone layer. And the scary thing is, one of the biggest holes is actually right above South Africa and right above Australia. And that is one of the reasons that our sun is so vicious in this country, why we have such a high incidence of skin cancer here, because there is a hole and more damaging rays are reaching us than in other parts of the world.
Right, sure.
Yeah, so
You know what? In the past couple of years, Mel, we've seen in the aesthetic industry more and more people presenting with pigmentation, severe sun damage, basal cell carcinomas, actinic keratosis, and melanomas, because of exactly this phenomenon, that we are not protected as well as they are in the north.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what I thought. I just thought it's cold out there, so it's, you know, and we're in the desert, sort of thing. You know.
it is partly that, but definitely our ozone hole is a huge factor. So understanding that ozone is this massive protector as a gas, it's a bit weird that we would want to infuse it into us. Well, not weird. I mean, it makes a bit of sense, but how do you get a gas inside you? Because obviously we're liquid beings. We have blood in our veins, and you definitely cannot infuse ozone gas into your vein. That would be instantaneously fatal.
Right.
So please, let's just put that on the table right now.
No,
But there
no
is-
DIYs,
No,
please.
please, no DIY ozone generators. Please make sure that you go to someone who knows what they're doing. But the lovely thing is being able to bubble ozone gas through a safe solution of electrolytes. The ozone gas attaches into the fluid, it dissolves, and then within about 10 minutes of creating this drip, you need to infuse it. And all of those amazing protective ozone molecules float around your body and are one of the most powerful antioxidant drips in the world. It literally hunts out broken things in your body, areas that are broken, areas that are toxic, and it neutralizes and fixes them. And it's pretty amazing because ozone doesn't care what's broken. It doesn't care if it's heart disease or cancer or an infection. It doesn't care. It seeks out broken things
Right.
and tries its best to assist your body in its own healing mechanism. So the lovely thing about ozone is how safe it is to infuse, but at the same time how globally beneficial it is. And I have yet to meet anybody that hasn't felt wonderful after an ozone drip. Yeah.
I mean, I'm so excited all of a sudden. I mean, this sounds amazing. Just, you know, you take your car for a tune-up. and this sounds like taking your body in for a tune-up, just going for a bit of a diagnostic. It will intuitively go to where it's needed, and it'll sort stuff out.
Chris, it's exactly that. You know what? When we started in the field of functional and preventative medicine about 15, 20 years ago, that's when we really started exploring this avenue of medicine. We realized that doing small maintenance procedures, basically, keeping and preventing diseases from starting, saves us from having serious disease and problems later on in life.
Yes.
And this is exactly the thought about ozone therapy, intravenous therapy, IV therapies. It's about maintenance. You know what? We've spoken at length about how do we start a skin care routine. When you start walking, you know what?
Yes.
You get into the habit of putting sunscreen on.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same thing. Start with this when you're young. Our athletes, Mel, and we're going to come to this shortly. Who are the people that can benefit from this? So let's go there.
Yes,
you know
please. Yeah.
who should do this, and what benefits can these patients expect?
So as you so rightly said, let's jump straight to the idea of athletes. So the idea of extreme exercise, extreme fitness, and then training for huge sporting goals are something very much part of the modern world. So media actually has made the sporting industry a very profitable one, and also exposed people to what they can do with their bodies, what kind of training is available. So we've got some amazing swimmers, rugby players, golfers, etc., that maybe never would have known their talent if it weren't for media. So they tried a sport and are now excelling. But anybody who is in the sporting world understands how rigorous a training program can be. And it involves your entire life, from how you sleep, how you eat, how you behave, and basically what you put in your mouth. Never mind the exercise that you're required to do to become an expert in that field. And all of these stressors, even though they're very healthy for you, and these people often look quite amazing, they look very strong, they actually burn up a lot of nutrients. So these vitamins that we spoke of, they burn up all the B vitamins drastically every day, vitamin C. And the athletes often eat very well, so they're quite well equipped to gear their bodies to heal and to improve. But even the best athletes cannot keep up. And athletes will often find that they get sick very easily. They get pretty exhausted. And they feel that they should push through it. Just get to the other side. You know, everybody else seems to be fine. Why are you so tired? Until the point that they crash and they've had enough. So,
and then something gives. I mean,
something always gives.
Yeah,
and heaven forbid, the week before comrades,
Yes.
you get ill and
Yeah.
now you can't run. So IV therapies are essential in most athletes to replenish those nutrients that are very hard to come by. So a lot of, in my practice, the week before big sporting events, we have
Sani to see is coming up.
absolutely the cyclists especially. We are giving them IV nutrient drips that boost their immune systems, not just before, but in the lead up to it. When the training is really tough and the fatigue sets in, and you need those muscles to heal, you need the mental vitality to stay awake and focused, they're coming for IVs, and specifically in the few days before, for example, a big cycle race. So the IVs are tailored to sports people for those nutrients that are often low, and then whatever the sporting event is, so you've got a 3-day Sani to see cycling race, you come back, beautiful, but you're exhausted. Now you have to get back. Most of us are not professional athletes, we're weekend warriors, and we need to be able to now recover and enter our daily lives again, looking after kids and businesses. So to combat that tiredness, it would do so well to do a post event drip, for example.
So you can do it for the lead up,
Yes.
and during the training and the heavy training, and
Yeah.
then to recover. And I mean that's amazing as well, because recovery is well, for me,
You
a
know, but
nightmare.
with any event, let's it's someone that goes and runs a 10K fun run. The amount of nutrients and fluids that you lose in that event, you cannot replace in one day by drinking fluids and eating food. That takes time, and IV therapies speed up that process drastically.
And I mean, also in the modern world, we don't have the time to let the body recuperate properly. A lot of the time. I mean, we don't. We go from the one thing into the next, you know.
Absolutely.
You know what? I think we live in such stressed times that everyone is running, whether it's between the office and school, or just between different floors in your building. You don't have to be an athlete to require IV therapy or to benefit from that.
Absolutely. Another one that's very interesting is actually a similarity between the feeling of being jet lagged. I'm
Right.
really sorry. I'm sure most of you out there go, I don't remember what that feels like. It was so long ago. But soon it will return. But the feeling of jet lag and the feeling of a hangover are actually very similar. And they're a lot to do with changes in your rhythms and partly to do with nutrient deficiencies. So we have specific drips available specifically for people with jet lag. You get off the plane, you drive straight to your IV doctor who gives you a replenishing drip, and you can literally go straight back to the office feeling like a new person. Same kind of thing. Hopefully there's not too much overindulgence happening, but that horrible feeling of a hangover and just feeling like your head is about to explode. They're actually quite similar in a way, that out at sea, nauseous kind of feeling. And we do have a post-hangover drip that is unbelievable. You go from wanting to feel like you just want the world to end to where we're going for lunch. So
And what's on the menu?
Yeah,
The
exactly.
Chardonnay or Shiraz?
So, Mel, our older patients or our patients with disease and how do they go about this? Do they go to their GPs who might not be doing IV therapy? Do they seek out one of the qualified medical practitioners that do deal with this? What is the best way for them to approach this?
I think working hand in hand with your GP, who knows your medical history. They know what you're about. They have a history of your blood tests and your illnesses. Combining the skill of that person together with somebody that knows what they're doing with IVs can help boost what your GP is doing. So one of the things that an IV doctor would ask you to do is to get hold of any and all blood tests that you've had in the last 6 months. If you don't have any recent bloods, they are going to ask you to go for a few basic ones just to see what they're dealing with and to make sure your system can cope with the rigors of an IV drip.
Right.
Mel, sorry, I want to interrupt you there
Yes.
because I think this is an incredibly important point. A lot of people who make use of IV therapy today walk into one of the IV bars or drip bars without a medical history. What are the dangers that they might encounter? I have one specific drip in mind, and Chris, you mentioned it earlier, vitamin C. We all ask for vitamin C, and I think Mel will now tell us why vitamin C in patients can be fatal.
Yeah.
Mel, what should these patients do?
So before having a nice high dose vitamin C drip, so high dose being anything above 1 gram, which is actually very healthy for you, between 1 and 7.5 grams of vitamin C as part of a multivitamin cocktail in a patient is extremely healthy and good for your immune system, but in qualified hands, because in the wrong hands and without doing the necessary screening blood tests, there's a small portion of the population with an enzyme deficiency in their red blood cells called a G6PD deficiency, which can be tested for in a simple routine blood test, which is prescribed by a doctor. If you do not know that you are G6PD deficient and you're given a high dose vitamin C, your blood will literally implode. So your little red blood cells go through what we call hemolysis. They explode. They release hemoglobin into your system, and you go into multi-organ failure and land up in ICU. So I don't want to scare people. I want to inform you, rather, that such a beautiful, healthy drip is so important to have. It's part of the multivitamin cocktail we do. But without knowing that you need to do that screening blood test, you're walking into a potential minefield. I don't know if you're G6PD deficient by looking at you. There's nothing, you don't have red hair or green eyes telling me. It's a hidden thing. And it is quite rare, but heaven forbid that's you. And something good and healthy turns into a nightmare.
So, very interesting. We do IV therapy when we start with 1 gram vitamin C. Chris, that's one of your 1,000 milligram effervescent tablets that you take orally.
Yeah.
So that's where the difference comes in. IV therapy, there's a 100% absorption, whereas orally, you might get 10 to 20%
99%
of absorption. And that's where the danger lies. Often I've prescribed 3,000 milligrams of vitamin C to a patient who's got flu over a day. But never would you do that to a patient intravenously without knowing whether they can tolerate that.
Now, I mean, so the alarm bells go off. So somebody doing this, doing IV therapy without the specific knowledge or thinking, I've managed this on 100 patients, my 101st is going to be absolutely fine, and they've got the G6 blah, blah, blah.
PD deficiency, correct.
Yes. And I mean, they could kill them. And not to put too fine a point, if you're going to multi-organ failure, you are in very serious trouble.
Yes, you are.
It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
You know what, Mel and I, who work in aesthetic medicine, and we've been working for the past 20 years, if you do 3 or 4 injections per day, it's fine. If you do 10 a day, 7 days a week, at some point you will get a complication.
Of course.
It's a mathematical certainty.
But Mark, I mean, this also reminds me of the work you do with testosterone and stuff. It's to get the balances right and to balance the body, not to suddenly infuse into the body a huge amount of whatever it is and throw other parts of your body out.
Well, you know what, Chris, as Mel said earlier, it's not only the nutrients that we put into the drip. It can be the fluid. If a patient is in heart failure or doesn't know that they have heart failure, and you overload them with even 200 mils of water or 500 mils of water, never mind a liter of water over a short period of time, you will push the patient over the edge. So you need an understanding of physiology, anatomy, pathology, pharmacology. There's a reason why we studied for a long time.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's the bottom line. Can I take us into something that has now been sitting on my head? I want to go back to ozone therapy, if we can. I'm thinking of a scenario. You have somebody who might be in the early stages of a dementia or something like that. Is this not a good therapy to start, just as an additional therapy, to start mitigating some of the effects?
Absolutely. Specifically with ozone therapy, but even with the other nutrients as well, Mark will agree with me that most of modern day pathology, what we're understanding from our integrative medicine and our wellness medicine, is all of those diseases, whether it be Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cancer, heart disease, they all actually stem originally from a problem of microinflammation in the body.
Yes.
So the body becomes inflamed. And the inflammation starts in very small amounts. You won't even notice it. Maybe you just feel a bit off. And in fact, early inflammation often feels like fatigue because things just don't work properly anymore. Your little ATP, your little energy engines in the body and your mitochondria just don't make energy like they used to because they're inflamed. And this microinflammation grows over time, and depending on your genetics and your lifestyle and your body, it's going to manifest in a certain disease.
Right.
So let's say your most vulnerable system is your nervous system. It might present as a neurological disease of some kind, dementia of some kind. If your cardiac system is the most vulnerable, you'll end up with heart disease. And let's just say that is a rising blood pressure and a failing heart. So there's many ways that this inflammation can present. And when we speak about your lifestyle, we talk about how is your lifestyle, how is your lack of exercise and your poor diet creating and causing this inflammation. So when your doctor asks you, please start walking, please start exercising, it's with a complete understanding that one of the most powerful anti-inflammatories in the world is exercise. Your diet, what you put in your mouth each day, can be a potent inflammatory depending on what you eat. So when your doctor's asking you to change your lifestyle, they're not doing it for any other reason than they understand they're trying to get your inflammation down, but unfortunately they're not really giving you a reason why you need to diet and exercise or start eating better, let's put it that way. So all of these drips, and specifically the IV ozone therapy, are massive anti-inflammatories. They're putting out fires all over the body, and they're giving your body the capability to make little firemen. So they get the fire trucks ready, and they pump out little firemen that go around and put out fires everywhere. which is part of why you feel so much better, because your body is now in a more relaxed state and it can function like it did before. So the brain can do what the brain's supposed to do, and the heart can function like it should without the hampering of these fires everywhere. So your immune system can function better because your immune system is a massive beast. It's a whole lot of white blood cells that act as one hive mind, and they're roving around the body trying to find what's wrong and kill pathogens and heal stuff. But if that organ system, if that hive has no energy, it presents in a number of ways, which include fatigue, the ability to get sick easily, and the very bad end result is the fact that cancer cells are allowed to grow instead of being killed.
Undetected, yes.
Yes, so cancer cells grow, and instead of your white cells killing them, because they say, I don't know how they know this, but every week of your life, cancer or mutated cells develop in every single one of us. That's part of being alive. And it's up to your immune system to go and find them and kill them before they grow into a nasty thing. So help your immune system and help your body to heal and the DNA to make itself better before these mutations happen. And IV nutrient therapy is definitely one of those very powerful mechanisms to assist with this. So I'd hate to tell you, when you say who should be having this, there's very few people I know who shouldn't be having this.
Right. Well, I mean, listening to you, that my immediate thought is absolutely everybody. And the first group of people I'd go into are the highly stressed group of people.
Absolutely.
So be it your highly stressed athletes or your highly stressed executives, or and I'm sure this is right.
Mums at home with children.
Well, I'm thinking of your students now going into their exam periods. Surely this is the ideal time for this.
I remember when we were at school, the only thing that
Was
we
that
had
when you
was
went on the Oxwagon?
Thank you, Chris. Was Nutri-B. We all used to take Nutri-B. Now this is available in a much better form through IV therapy.
Yeah. How long does it take for a drip to run, your standard drips to run through?
So the standard, I just call it a double shot. So a shot of ozone and then an IV nutrient drip in total is about 30 to 40 minutes.
So, wow, you're going into your exam period now. You take 30 or 40 minutes. It's going to take you an hour and a bit to get to the wellness clinic or wherever it is. And you go to and you have it done, and that will set you up for your studying, your anxiety, your health, because your health suffers when you're under all the stress. It's an amazing tool to do that much better, to be your better self.
Absolutely. Optimization.
Oh, lovely word, yes.
Mel,
Yes.
what are the conditions, other than fatigue and well-being, that we can address through IV therapies?
So the one thing that I remember as a GP, because as you rightly said, I'm now more into aesthetic and integrative medicine. So as a GP, the one thing that frustrated me so much was that there were these conditions where patients were not specifically ill. There wasn't a label that you could put on them to say, you have X, okay, you have diabetes, or you have... It's more esoteric than that. It's a little bit up in the air because it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I'm a bit tired and I'm a bit achy, and we can do all the bloods in the world and we can do all the scans and x-rays, and we can't put a label on it. So it's terrible in a way, and I want to just say it can sometimes create a bit of lazy medicine in a way, because...
Sorry, I'm just going to jump in. My one GP in a group practice, we used to call him Dr. Virus because, oh yes, you've got some virus, and I got Dr. Virus today. Oh, okay.
But it is so true, and I think the one thing that the whole COVID pandemic has brought out is the understanding that our world is filled with pathogens, and many of them we don't even have a name for. Often you do have a virus, you have a fever, you have body aches, it's gone within a week or two and you're better all by yourself. There are thousands, millions of pathogens that we don't have a name for, that come and rage through communities and disappear. And there's nothing that we can do because there's no name for them, there's no cure for them, other than your own innate immunity that needs to fight it and get it better. So there are these unnamed conditions that leave us in a sea of, we don't know what to do with these people because they don't feel hectically ill, but they don't feel well. They're not living their best lives. And the lovely thing with IV therapy, and I do find this specifically with ozone, ozone doesn't care what's wrong with you. You may not have a label for it other than calling it something like chronic fatigue.
Right.
But generally, as long as there's no contraindication, something that is truly in you should not be having an IV therapy. For example, severe heart failure or severe kidney failure, for example. If it's safe enough for you to have a drip, and you do, I'd say 95% of people feel dramatically better after one drip. And why I said lazy medicine is because there is the risk that you can literally throw an IV at almost anyone because you don't know what's wrong with them.
Right.
And I think we've all seen the medical fraternity's been in the highlight with the COVID pandemic. And I think lay people understand for the first time how difficult medicine is, because it's a science, but it's not always an exact science.
not.
There's so much we don't know, and we learn as we go along.
Right.
So these IV therapies are just there to help boost you and get you through and get over some of these things that we don't have a name for.
So Mel and myself are both in functional medicine and wellness.
Right.
And Chris, we've spoken about it so often. It's about looking at the patient holistically, understanding how different hormones, systems, nutrients will affect the patient as a whole. When we look, and Mel, we discussed this a little bit earlier about patients on testosterone, one of the things that we sometimes forget is that our thyroid hormone is a steroid hormone. And one of the effects that is greatly underestimated is the effect of your iron levels and your vitamin D levels on your thyroid metabolism. By just optimizing things like zinc, magnesium, selenium, you enhance the ability of your thyroid hormones to actually get activated and do the work that they're supposed to do. Getting that balance right has phenomenal effects on your patients. Getting it wrong, and your patient will go on and find the next doctor to try and treat him.
Absolutely.
So there's an understanding that goes with this. And Mel, you know that we get to know our patients, and it's not a once-off. This is a journey that we have with our patients, and that makes our work so satisfying. A lot of our general practitioners out there are confronted with sick people. You go to your doctor because you're sick.
Yes.
And you never go back until you're sick again. The wonderful thing about what we do, and what gives us so much pleasure and job satisfaction, is that our patients come back to us because they're feeling better.
And want to feel even better.
And you know what? When you get this right, you change people's lives, relationships, outlooks.
You get to live
It's
your
phenomenal.
best life. Yeah.
I mean, but that's so. I mean, surely we owe it to ourselves to do this. You know, but. And again, I keep wanting to come back to this. No DIY jobs here. You know, don't buy a saline bag and mix in your stuff and shove it into yourself. You know,
it's prescription medication. You won't be able to, but still. Chris, I'm sorry that I interrupted you there. You said something that immediately, Mel, cost
Yeah, I
of
was
this.
going to get that's my next point.
Because, you know what, IV therapy isn't just for people who have disposable income lying around. what do we look at for the layman out there who earns a regular income, that has 2 children, a bond and a car?
So I think the first understanding is the raw ingredients to make something pure enough to be injected straight into a vein. Those raw ingredients have to be quite special. They have to be sterile, and they have to be sourced in a very careful way. So those raw ingredients cost money, and you're not just putting 1 or 2 in, you're putting a whole lot of them into a bag in a designed amount. So they do come at a cost. The cost generally, and looking, because I did do some research before this just to see what the range of cost is, it's generally in the region of about 700 to 1,200 Rand for a drip, depending what's in it and what dosages are in it.
Right.
Unfortunately, I don't know of any medical aids that pay for it, because, as Mark, you know, a lot of preventative medicine is just not part of what medical aids offer. They'll treat you if you're ill, or they'll pay, but they won't pay for you to stay healthy necessarily. So it generally is something you need to pay for cash. And the cost implications are, when you are on that journey that you spoke about, where it's not a once-off thing, generally most people are going to do 1 multivitamin drip a week, and I would suggest no shorter than a month. So you need to do about 4 to get the full build-up of what those nutrients are offering to you. So you're looking at 1 drip a week for about 4 weeks. The reality is, if you are deficient in what's being infused into you, and you do feel better on it, I have patients that book a select spot week on week. And every now and again, they'll get busy, they'll be traveling, life happens to them, and they miss a week or 2, and arrive in the 3rd week looking haggard and exhausted, going, I can't do without a drip.
Right.
Because of the physiological boost that they realistically feel. They try and go off and supplement it orally and land up realizing there's something magical about the IV route that just works for many people. I won't say for everybody. But if you do go for IVs with a good, solid practitioner who knows what they're doing, and you don't feel much of a difference, which can happen, it's actually incredible that you're not going to feel a difference unless you were at first deficient in those nutrients. So if, I didn't really feel like much, and you're being honest with yourself, then the reality is you may not be deficient in those. You can safely walk away going, I gave it a good try.
You know what, I always tell my patients that start with me on hormone replacement therapy, don't expect anything in week 1. In week 2, you might say, I'm sleeping a bit better, or I have a little bit more energy. It's usually after about week 4, and Chris, you went through this process with me, that, wow. And then, if you skip, you go back, and that's only when you realize just how bad you were feeling without knowing it.
Week 4, you come out, you're actually quite evangelical around it all, about how wonderful it feels. But I mean, this is just, it's amazing. So I've been through the hormone replacement stuff. It's important, it's wonderful. I come out, I'm now booked for, I want to try IV therapy, because I think it's just that next step. Why not do it if you can afford it? And it's not cheap. No. However, if you are in a stress situation, being off sick with congenital heart failure over 6 months is going to be far more expensive than that. So there's a preventative thing. You will be more productive. If you're in your own business and you need to be on the ball and productive, this is a great, very quick, very wonderful initiative to get a boost, to get you going, especially if you've had a long, tough year. If you've all of that, you know, it's a great way. I mean, and I worked it out. So you're looking between 4,000 and 5,000 Rand for a month's worth of therapy, which will last you for a reasonable amount of time.
Absolutely.
At most.
Yeah.
At most.
At most. Yeah.
So, I mean, you put that aside. If you wanted to go away for the weekend, it's actually going to cost you that. But it would all, but this will have last a lot longer and be far more beneficial to you if you than going away for a weekend. Going away for a weekend is lovely, but it will. I mean, the benefits are just so much better and it's so much healthier for you.
So, Mel, I see that we're fast running out of time. Let's do a quick recap. The most important things for our listeners out there and our patients out there that decide they want to embark on this. Choose the correct practice to go for. Make sure that you are asked and give a full medical history with all conditions, medications, allergies, etc. Do the necessary blood screening if you have to, and trust your practitioner that's on hand to give you the correct treatment. There's so many different IV or intravenous therapy offerings at the moment. Are there any reputable ones that patients can look out for? Are there any groups?
In response to patients asking for this, I know that there are many medical practices out there that have started an IV therapy arm. So I think the first step would be to call your GP, see if they offer IV therapies or if they know of a reputable practice in the area, because there are many doctors who are single practices who are offering this at the moment. And I think the important thing is to ask them all the good questions about where do you source your IVs from, what are you going to be giving me. So don't be afraid. There's the old history of being too scared to ask your doctor what you're getting is over. This is the age of information and Dr. Google, and you're allowed to ask and you're allowed to be told. So if they're not willing to tell you, that's a bit of a red flag for me. So make sure that they're open about what it is they're giving you. There are doctor groups that are getting together. I know recently there's one that's been set up. It's called ESPRIT IV Therapy or ESPRIT IV. They are a group of doctors getting together and deciding to do all that's necessary to be well accredited, which includes going for the proper training in IV therapy, having the right things in the practice like resuscitation equipment, and having a doctor on site. Also ordering the IVs from a reputable compounding pharmacy where you know what you're getting. So there is that group, but in saying that, there are, I believe, 2 or 3 more doctor groups that may be set up. So I would keep a lookout because I'm sure they'll be launched to the public in the near future.
Chris, what we will do is that information, I know there's Dr. Ludwig's group. We will add the information to our Facebook pages and our websites.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have a website where people can get hold of you?
So the website, so I'm affiliated with ESPRIT IV Medical Therapy. So the website for Dr. Mark and myself is ESPRIT, ESPRIT, espritiv.co.za.
Fantastic. That's brilliant.
I think time has caught up with
It
us
has
again
indeed.
with